Hello, patriots out there, and welcome back to another Va2A news production. I'm Robert Ham. Today we'll be going over just an update of the bills that are in Virginia. Right now, what's passed, what hasn't passed. And I saw a really cool article in here that I thought that we might like to read. It's about the Lobby Day 2020, since it had to do with us here in Virginia. And that's what we're going to get into. If you like what we're doing here, the easiest way to help me continue doing it is to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to donate something, head over to the PayPal link. That's great, too. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's actually get into it. More than 60 bills regarding guns, many focused on limiting the right to keep and bear arms, were introduced into Virginia this year. The most prominent one was Senate Bill 16. Now, as we already know, and they're going to talk about, Senate Bill 16 actually died. It died on January 13th when Dick Saslaw voted to withdraw it from the committee's consideration, and that was a unanimous vote allowed by them. That happened on January 13th, but on January 7th, we actually had House Bill 961 enter into the realm or the auditorium, so to speak. And 961 is a bill that actually updated and modified a lot of the language and concepts in Senate Bill 16. 961 is actually shows that we have some pressure, political pressure, that was placed on the Democrats, and that caused them to maneuver and try to flank our political pressure. And I've got 961 pulled up over here on the Legislative Information website. You guys know how to get to it, but the most important thing that you got to remember is that it does now allow for you to have a permit for your assault firearm, and it does allow for the use of such assault firearm and the transportation of such firearm. Gosh, just saying the words makes me disgusted because, you know, you have to understand, I'm trying to bring this to you, but I'm also thinking about what it is that I'm saying in this bill and how much it really appalls me. But yes, what's happened is, through political pressure, we've been able to get the Democrats to create a different bill that kind of concedes a little bit here and there. Remember when Senate Bill 16 came about, people were angry because it would turn people into felons overnight, right? And they were angry because there was no grandfather clause. And they're angry because it created a new class of weapon. I had a comment on one of my videos that said, if you're just creating laws, keep creating laws and keep creating definitions, and you can outlaw anything you want. And that's exactly right. That's exactly what they did with the assault firearm definition. But this bill is a direct response to the political pressure of the Second Amendment sanctuary cities. And whether you like it or not, it has happened, right? Now, most of us would prefer not to have any of that stuff going on, but hey, here we are. So a person that's issued a permit will be able to use his firearm on his home or on his property or on somebody else's property if he's got their permission slip signed. No joke, okay? While at a shooting range, a shooting gallery, or at a target or a public or private club or organization whose members have organized for the purpose of shooting targets, hunting matches, and competitions, okay? While engaged in lawful hunting, right, and you're going to love this one, or while surrendering the assault firearm to the local authorities, okay? So you can have your assault firearm in any of those three instances. Person issued such a permit may also transport an assault firearm between any of those locations, provided that it is unloaded and locked in a case when you're doing so. So this means that going from place to place, they don't have a lot of stipulations here. So when traveling through the Commonwealth, you can have your assault firearm in a loaded, locked box. It's a $25 penalty if you don't have your permit on you when you're asked for it. So the next part of the bill we're going to talk about is the felony overnight. The bill further states that any person who legally owns an assault firearm on July 1st may retain, you can keep it after January 1st, 2021, which is 6 months later, if a person has obtained a permit from the state police, and the permit's going to cost $50. So there you go. It doesn't stipulate if it's the permit for one rifle or multiple rifles, like with your concealed handgun permit, but they do have that in place. So the political pressure that we placed on these guys was enough to make them change the bill so that there is no more overnight felony, so that there is no grandfather, but a permit, which is a registration. Believe it or not, don't think twice that there isn't. The actual discussion of the bill talks about the Virginia Criminal Information System Network, and then it also allows for you to use it and maintain it and take it from place to place. So those things happen because of political pressure. I want to point that out. And that's good that we were able to enact change. It's bad that this change has to be enacted. It's bad. We didn't have these problems before the Democrats took the House and the Senate. Think about that. This is a made-up problem. But we're working through it, I suppose. Some of the other bills have a better chance, like House Bill 69 limits the common handgun purchases to one handgun a month, which is true unless you have a CWP or a permit by the state police. If you don't have a CWP, you have to have their permission. And SB35 allows authorities to ban firearms in public areas. Yeah, so like the Cherry Blossom Festival or the Peach Festival or the Strawberry Festival, all those things, or the Chesapeake Jubilee, any of those things will be banned. And on January 22nd, Senate Democrats passed Senate Bill 240. This is the red flag bill. Let's jump over to that real quick. So Senate Bill 240, this bill, I've been reading it, and there's a lot to it as you go down. Let me just give you some highlights that I remember off the bat. The first part is that an extreme risk protection order lasts for 14 days unless you don't make it to your hearing within that 14-day period because you are either incarcerated and the people that had you incarcerated, the cops didn't transport you on time, or you failed to appear. Then it will be extended for an additional 14 days. So that's till your first hearing. At that hearing, the judge is supposed to either grant the extreme risk protection order in its entirety, which lasts up to 6 months at a time, and can be appealed by the Commonwealth Attorney or the police for an additional 6 months, so up to 1 year. Or they're supposed to dissolve the order, right? Now, if they dissolve the order, you do not automatically get your firearm back. Now, recognize the police have already taken your firearm at the time that they completed or executed the red flag, which is the extreme risk protection order. It's got a different name in here. It's not extreme risk protection order. It's something else. But what I was saying was you don't automatically get your firearm back. You're supposed to get it back. The court intends for you to get it back, but it requires you to file a written request to have your firearm given back to you with the agency that collected your firearm through their Property and Evidence Department. Well, I would assume the Property and Evidence Department, it didn't actually say that directly. And then they have up to 5 days to get it back to you after receiving that. So let's pretend that you have a red flag order like this on you. They serve it to you within 14 days. You have to have a trial within that 14 days or a hearing. If it's found to be you're solvent and you can have your firearm back and there's no reason for this ERPO, right? Then at that day, the court will dissolve the order, which means then you have to go and submit a request written for your firearm to come back, which is another 5 days. That's 19, 20 days. It doesn't work on weekends and everything else. So it's about 3 weeks that you're out of your firearm if you get it back on time. And this does account for holidays and weekends and stuff like that in the bill. If not, then it's longer. It's up to 6 months plus 5 days. Up to 1 year it can be continued. Now, it doesn't say how many times it can be continued in the bill, but as you can see, there's lots of it in the bill. So what this bill also does, it reenacts parts of the Virginia Constitution which are currently repealed. Now, this one, guys, I've been reading this one for a few days. It takes a lot to really wrap your head around. But it is not designed to be an instrument that you can easily get out of if it's placed upon you. Sure, there are consequences in here for people that are making false statements and stuff like that, calling it a Class 1 misdemeanor. Dude, a Class 1 misdemeanor for lying, perjury gets you up to 20 years, but a Class 1 misdemeanor gets you what, maybe 12 months and $2,500 in fines? Maybe it's more than that. You guys let me know in the comments below what it is. I'm speculating right now. But what I'm saying is they lied. They should be held to a higher and a more accountable standard than just a Class 1 misdemeanor. That's a problem for me. As we continue on down, looking around, there's another one. If you didn't realize, there's a couple of bills, at least 2 bills focusing on abortion and relaxing those laws are in the state right now. Senate Bill 733 would remove requirements that a woman must be provided information shortly before getting an abortion, including an ultrasound and the possible detrimental psychological effects of abortion. And that bill has already passed the Education and Health Committee on January 23rd, so that was just a week ago. And Senate Bill 365 states that a pregnant woman has a fundamental right to terminate a pregnancy and that the state shall not deny or interfere with that such right. Guys, you know, I'm a big proponent of life, and also I recognize that it takes 2 people to come together. I'm also a proponent of men's rights and fathers' rights and things like that. And so if you're knocking boots, right, and you're going to take the dollar bills out of the man's paycheck because the woman chooses to keep it and he doesn't want anything to do with the baby in that situation. But here, you're not even considering the man when the woman doesn't want anything to do with the baby. He doesn't get any compensation for his son or daughter that you get to take away and snip out of the tube without any two thoughts. Maybe you should be practicing some better sex control. It's really that simple. And I know that opinion isn't really popular, because the popular opinion right now is the same type of popular opinion that believes these gun laws are okay. If you're not willing to knock boots and have a baby together, then you should do the proper protections. And if you are going to go through and get an abortion, Dad should have something to say about it too, because you couldn't have conceived that baby on your own if you're a lady, and the dude definitely couldn't. So there needs to be something more than just gun to the head or snipping. You know, they cut the baby apart into pieces, right? They cut the arms off and the nose off and the head off and all that other stuff. You got to think about that. It's a real life living being. And that's all I'm going to say about that. The next thing we've got is Senate Bill 399, and that would give all of the Virginia electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. This is ridiculous as well. This is the National Popular Vote Compact, and I've come over here and I've read it. It's got a lot of definitions. All the italicized stuff is new. This is a new one. Here's the reality. The National Popular Vote is a compact of states. It's an agreement between the states that's outside of the Constitution, right? And basically what it says is it's trying to usurp the Electoral College. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. But what it wants to do, as soon as they have enough states that agree to this compact, that the total electors or electorate votes that they have in this compact will breach 270, then all states that are voted to be a part of this compact pledge to vote that way. Now, this is a compact. I don't know that there are any stipulations for states that say they'll vote that way now and choose not to vote that way later. We haven't seen it happen, but that's what this compact is all about. And the whole purpose of this is to get around the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a process, not a place. The Founding Fathers established the Constitution, or established it in the Constitution in part, as a compromise between the election of the president by the vote of Congress and the election of the president by vote of the popular qualified citizens. And the process consists of the selection of the electors and a meeting of the electors where they vote for the president and the vice president, and they do that on separate ballots as well, by the way. And so what happens here is the Electoral College, there are most places, most states will have the electorate submit votes that match the will of the state. Some states actually will split their electorate votes that match the will of the different parts of the states. And I think here it talks about Nebraska, or however, Maine and Nebraska each have a variation of the proportional representation. You can see it right down here. So they can change it up. But what that happens is, though, is that the Electoral College was made to make sure that the populous centers, the ones that have the most electoral votes, and the electoral votes are decided by an equal number of the House of Representatives that you have, plus 2 of the state senators equal your electoral votes, and that's how many electoral votes you have. So that would give places that are extremely high populous densities like that unjust control over and sway over the election, right? If it was just on the popular vote. So what happens is that you have the Electoral College, which allows smaller areas to have as equal of representation as they can have compared to larger, more dense populated areas. Localities that don't have as many citizens or electorates have less of a voting share, have less of a say. It puts the outcome of the election squarely into the hands of the most populous states. So that was the purpose. It was to even that entire thing out by allowing states that don't have the population to be represented more fully in the national politics and the national elections. Getting rid of the Electoral College has a process. It's a constitutional amendment. You could do that. If you could sway enough people for the National Popular Vote Compact, why not just have a constitutional amendment? There's a way to do that that's actually legal and not outside of the scope of the Constitution. And the reality is they can't do it that way, okay? They can't do it that way because it would never pass. Constitutional amendments are very difficult because people don't like messing with it. So they try to get around it by making this kind of compact. And I'd like to see this challenged in court. I would imagine that if something like this ever did take place, it would be challenged in court. All right, let's see what else is over here in the Epoch Times. Voter rights. Okay, so Senate Bill 65 would remove the requirement for Virginians to show a photo ID and be allowed to vote. We've talked about this. And what's more important about this is actually not just what it says. It incorporates a couple of other bills, such as this one, Senate Bill 123, and the summary is voter identification expiration of Virginia driver's license not considered. So not only does a driver's license not be required in Senate Bill 65, because it incorporated the other bill, the Senate Bill 113 and Senate Bill 123, it also says that if you have an expired driver's license, it doesn't matter. Where in the world would an expired driver's license allow you to do anything? You won't even buy cigarettes with an expired driver's license, okay? But you can vote? This is all kinds of ridiculous, if you can't tell. It's all kinds of ridiculous. It makes no sense to me. Moving on along. Okay, so now we're up to a couple of things that are actually good for us. This is a Second Amendment protection bill. It puts a law, it's like it puts a wall around the Second Amendment. House Bill 1689, this was introduced by Ronnie Campbell. He's a Republican. And this actually makes it illegal to tamper with the Second Amendment specifically by making any laws that contradict the Second Amendment of the United States and Article 1, Section 13 of the Virginia Constitution illegal. And we can read this, go for it, but that's pretty much what it does. It also holds people accountable under colorable law that attempt to enforce a Second Amendment law violation that we would consider a constitutional thing. That you'd say, hey, it's against the Second Amendment, you can't take away my guns. If anyone tried to enforce such a law against you, including a judge or a court order or an officer or a police officer or any agent of the state, it would hold them accountable and give you remedies and punitive remedies and damages under law. And it states it all right here. Now, I like this bill because we need it right now. We should never have needed it. I've seen a lot of comments on a previous video that I did that I completely agree with. Why is it that the Republicans knew they were going to be ousted, right? The switch happened overnight. Why didn't we have this when this kind of stuff was taking place with the Maryland assault weapons ban? Why didn't they put this in now? So there are people that claim that this is just an attempt for a Republican to make a splash and have a better chance at re-election. I agree. You should have been on this already. We should have had the foresight to think about what's going on. I don't like that we have to have this. I don't think we need another law to protect the Second Amendment. We shouldn't, but in this day and age, that's what's under attack. So if the Democrats are going to attack it with colorable law, right, then we should protect it with actual law. And if that requires another bill, I guess that's what you do. Here's another one. Now, this is one I can really get behind. We've got 96% of localities in Virginia that all signed up for sanctuary city protections. House Bill 934 does exactly that. It gives recognition and the force of law to the counties that have enacted Second Amendment resolutions and sanctuaries. And remember when Attorney General Mark Herring said, "You'll do what I say. These Second Amendment sanctuaries have no force of law, and when it comes time to enforce the law, the counties will do what they're told." Well, this makes what the county passed, the resolutions, it makes them law. So it's a smack in the face to Mark Herring. It also takes away, remember when good old Ralph Northam was sitting there threatening to take away funding from cities? I was at Chesapeake when the Mayor West said, "Hey, I just got off a call with the governor, and he said he would take away our funding if we had a sanctuary. So we drafted this constitutional amendment. We took it a step further, and we'll go with you to Richmond to protest this. We stand with you." Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing all that. He said it in a more dry, legalistic sense. But it was nice to have someone that said, "Hey, we'll go with you to Richmond in order to stand by it." And what he said was, "No, we don't care about your funding. You can't take our funding away anyways." This law would protect funding and would not allow the governor or any branch of government to take funding from a city or locality just because they have a Second Amendment constitutional sanctuary city. So it gives them teeth, and it also takes away the ability to reduce funding. Hey, that's a win-win all the way around. Here's the problem. Nobody's talking about this bill. No one's talking about the other one I showed you, House Bill 1697. No one's talking about those bills, right? And we're here. The House Bill 1697 on the 28th went to the subcommittee on firearms. It's going to be talked about. And House Bill 934, this is the sanctuary city teeth, it's in the House Committee on Public Safety. No one's talking about it. So if you're not calling your legislators to let them know, if you're not calling the people on the committee over here to let them know, that you want this passed, then they won't know, and these could likely die just a quiet death by being laid on the table and never get out of the committees, which would be terrible. I don't like any of that. But once again, we're going to round out this red flag. I want to hear you. This was a possible red flag which took place. I just want you to hear this took place prior to January 18th. It took on January 18th, and it was a red flag from a citizen that went up to Richmond just to check it out before Lobby Day.
So the reason that we're here is I'm sure you are well aware of all the events occurring on Monday.
Correct. I am a citizen of the United States, and I understand that we have an unconstitutional Second Amendment asshole governor who is taking away our rights. Okay, next question.
So the reason that we are here is we got a tip that somebody was coming down to the Capitol, and there was video footage of you at the Capitol, walking around the Capitol, which appeared to be checking into structures, and just getting a general surrounding of the Capitol and seeing what's going on. Knocking on pillars, most likely to check densities.
So they said that they saw him up there walking around the Capitol, knocking on pillars, columns. This man is going to lay into these cops. They showed up. This is like a pre-red flag. They got an anonymous tip. I think it's complete bogus. Who'd they get the tip from? They got the tip from themselves. They said they were surveilling him. They saw him walking around knocking on things. And he's going to say later that the reason that he knocked on things. Now, I didn't know this, but I did check the website for the Capitol. And yeah, the columns are made out of solid pieces of wood, logs, big tree trunks. And he was just knocking on them because he wanted to see. I can totally get that. That's something anybody might do, just admiring the craftsmanship to it. But here we are, 2 days prior to, and 100 miles away from the Capitol. These assholes showed up to check him out to make sure he was not a problem. Watch it if you want to be angered and realize what's actually at stake in the cause. Guys, I'm Robert Ham with Virginia Second Amendment News. Of course, you know I'm reporting for your rights. If you like what I'm doing, come over here. Don't forget to subscribe. Click the little like button. And if you'd like to, head over to PayPal and support me with a cup of coffee. Give what your heart desires. I'd appreciate it. Guys, I'm Robert Ham with Virginia Second Amendment News. I'm reporting for your rights. Thank you for watching.